Hey everybody, ready for another deep dive?
Yeah.
Today we're talking all about using language effectively.
And not just for, those big, scary speeches,
Oh, yes, that's right.
but for any kind of communication
Sure.
emails,
Just talking to your friend.
even social media posts or anything like that.
We're going to really unlock that superpower.
Yeah.
And we're pulling a lot of really interesting insights today from Master the Art of Public Speaking with Impactful Language.
I think what's really cool about this source is that it focuses on how these techniques, you can really use them anywhere.
Right.
Like I said, not just speeches.
Public speaking?
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of people's biggest fear.
Oh, yeah.
And the source even points out that over 70% of people are more afraid of public speaking than death.
Really puts it in perspective.
I know.
It really does.
We got to get over that.
Yeah, for
that
sure.
fear.
Absolutely.
But really, feeling confident and comfortable with the language that we use,
Absolutely.
no matter what situation we're in, whether you're, presenting a new idea at work or you're just, out with your buddies or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess let's dive into the first big takeaway here.
Right.
And this is knowing your audience.
Yeah.
Now, this might seem pretty basic.
Right.
But I'm curious to hear what the source has to say about this.
Well, it says that tailoring your language to whoever you're speaking to is so important.
Right.
Whether it's a presentation,
Okay.
a blog post,
Yeah.
or even just a casual conversation with a friend.
So it's all about, meeting them on their level.
Exactly.
So like you would talk to maybe your fellow engineers using all the technical jargon.
Of course.
But then when you're explaining, something to your grandma,
right.
you might use simpler terms.
A little bit different.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. And this is really, really important for language learners to think about.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if you're learning a new language, you wouldn't use the same vocabulary or grammar
Right.
when speaking to, say, a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Compared to when you're speaking with a professor about politics.
Yeah.
Two very different
Very different situations.
audiences there.
Absolutely.
So I got to be aware of that.
So it's about meeting people where they're at, linguistically speaking.
Right.
Awesome. All right. So the source also talks about clarity over complexity.
Yes.
So does this mean we ditch the jargon and just make it straightforward?
Yes, ditch the jargon.
Okay.
It's better to be clear and concise than to use really convoluted sentences with big words that nobody understands.
So less is more.
Yes.
Okay.
And the source actually gives us a great example.
Okay, good.
Instead of saying, our organizational restructuring aims to optimize operational efficiencies,
Oh, gosh.
you're saying something like,
Please.
we're reorganizing to work smarter and faster.
Yeah.
Much easier.
That's much better.
Yes.
It's straight to the point.
Yes.
And I bet this is super helpful for language teachers.
Yeah.
Because it's got to be tempting to throw all this information at your students. But if you keep it simple,
Keep it simple.
that's how they're going to learn.
That's how they learn best.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right, so let's move on to rhetorical devices.
Ooh.
They sound kind of fancy,
Yeah, they sound a little bit fancy.
but the source seems to think they're like a secret weapon
Secret weapon.
for better communication.
Yeah.
Can you break it down for us?
Think of them as tools that make your language more impactful and memorable.
Okay.
So anyone can use these.
Right. Hit me with some examples.
Okay, well, repetition is a big one.
Oh, yeah.
It drives the point home by repeating it.
Right.
Think about Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech.
Yeah.
He repeats that phrase over and over again, and it really emphasizes
Oh, for sure.
the message.
Yeah. And it's not just about repeating the words, it's about the emotion behind it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, awesome. What other rhetorical devices does the source mention?
Well, there's alliteration.
Okay.
Where you use words with the same starting sound to really emphasize a point.
Like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Exactly. That's a classic example.
Yeah, and it sticks in your mind
Yes, it does.
because it's fun to say.
Yeah.
Does the source give us any other examples of how alliteration can be used in a more sophisticated way?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Think about Winston Churchill's famous line, "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets."
Wow.
The repetition of "we shall fight"
Right.
combined with the alliteration of the F sound makes it really powerful.
Wow, and inspiring.
Yeah, very inspiring.
And I bet this is really helpful for language learners too,
Oh, definitely.
especially those who are trying to expand their vocabulary and understand the nuances of a new language.
By paying attention to how these techniques are used by others,
Right.
they can not only improve their communication, but also really gain an appreciation for how powerful language can be.
Yeah, like unlocking a secret code
Yeah,
to better communication.
exactly.
All right, I am
Yeah.
on board with this rhetorical device thing.
Okay, good.
I'm glad. What else, what other gems does the source have for us?
Well, let's talk about analogies and metaphors.
Okay.
They're great for taking a complex idea and making it easier to understand
Okay.
by comparing it to something familiar.
Okay. I like that.
For example, instead of saying, this project is challenging,
Okay.
you could say, this project is like climbing Mount Everest. Makes it a little more exciting.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Yeah.
And I think especially with language learning too, that must be really helpful
Absolutely.
for people who are trying to grasp a new concept.
By connecting it to something that they already know,
Right.
it makes it easier to remember,
Yeah,
and it makes it more engaging for them, too.
that's a great analogy.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So speaking of making things memorable, the source also talks about the importance of speaking with emotion.
Yeah,
And I feel like this is huge,
it is.
especially for language learners who are trying to really connect
Yes.
with native speakers.
Let's connect on a deeper level.
Absolutely.
Using words that evoke a certain emotion
Okay.
can really help your listeners understand and connect to your message.
All right.
So think about the difference between saying, this project is important, versus this project has the potential to change lives.
Wow.
A little bit different.
Yeah, that second one is much more impactful.
It is,
Yeah.
and more memorable.
But I bet that applies to language learning as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because if you can feel the emotion behind the language,
Yes,
you're more likely to really internalize it and just use it fluently.
exactly. You got it.
Okay, this is all so interesting.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how all of these techniques
Mm.
can really transform the way that we communicate.
Yeah.
And not just in our native language, but in any language that we're learning.
Any language.
Absolutely.
It's all about being more mindful
Yeah,
about the words that we choose to use.
absolutely.
And being aware of the impact that they can have on the people that we're speaking to.
And the best part is, this is just the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
We have so much more to explore
You
in
do.
this deep dive. You ready to keep uncovering these secrets?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
I think our listeners are going to be really surprised by what we uncover today.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. You know, it's really amazing
Yeah.
how much power language.
Yeah.
It's like this key
Yeah.
that can unlock understanding,
Oh, yeah.
connection,
for sure.
inspiration even.
Absolutely. And speaking of things that are amazing,
Okay.
the source actually goes into the power of storytelling,
Okay.
which I think is super fascinating.
It's a good one.
It's my favorite part, I think,
Mm-hmm.
because story time is really where language comes alive.
Yes, I agree.
Right.
It emphasizes that.
That's it.
Storytelling is a really relatable and memorable way to communicate,
Oh, for sure.
no matter what language you're speaking.
It's true. We've been sharing stories
Yeah,
since like the dawn of time.
pretty much.
Yeah. And I bet for language learners,
Yeah,
seeking out stories in their target language
Right.
is a great way to learn.
I think so too.
Wouldn't you say?
Because it helps you learn new vocabulary and grammar
Right.
in a really natural and engaging way.
Right. It's not just about, memorizing verb conjugations
Yes.
from a textbook.
Nobody wants to do that.
No, it's boring.
Yeah.
It's like you're really immersed in the language
You are.
when you're experiencing a story.
Yeah, and stories can be really motivating for language learning too.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just more fun
Way more fun.
than,
Yeah.
boring exercises.
Yes.
Like I remember when I was learning Italian,
Yeah.
I just devoured every Italian novel I could get my hands on.
Good for you.
It really made such a difference.
I bet.
And it wasn't just about learning the language.
Right.
It was about connecting with another culture
Absolutely.
and seeing the world through, a different lens.
That's a really good point.
You know, because stories let us
Yeah.
experience the world
Yeah.
from someone else's perspective.
Right.
And for language teachers,
Yeah.
I think this is a really great tool
Right.
to incorporate storytelling into their lessons
For sure.
because it can really bring the language to life.
Absolutely.
It helps the students connect with it on a deeper level
Absolutely.
instead of just presenting them with
Yeah.
dry grammar rules.
It makes it so much more fun.
It does.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of exploration,
Okay.
the source also talks about the importance of practice.
Yes.
Now, let's be real. Practice can feel like a chore sometimes.
It can.
So I'm hoping the source has some tips
Okay.
for how to make it fun.
Yeah. Well, it says to try to find ways to make it engaging and enjoyable.
Okay.
So think role-playing,
Okay.
watching movies,
Yes.
TV shows in your target language.
Yeah.
Or even just having conversations with other language learners.
Right, like turning it into an adventure.
Exactly, an adventure.
And not a chore. Not a chore.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't underestimate the power of feedback
Well, that's a good
from
point.
other learners,
Yeah.
even if they're not a
Yeah.
teacher.
It's like having a support system.
It is.
Yeah, and I think that applies to language teachers as well.
Yeah.
Like if you create this, really supportive,
Yeah,
encouraging learning environment,
for sure.
it makes a big difference
It makes a world of difference.
for the students.
Because then they
Right.
feel more comfortable
Yeah,
taking risks,
Right,
making
yeah.
mistakes,
exactly.
which is so important for language learning.
Absolutely. And, we've been talking about all these different techniques,
Yeah.
but I'm curious how this all ties back to that first big takeaway,
Okay.
which is knowing your audience.
Right. Well, if you can understand how to use impactful language,
Right.
you can connect better
Yeah.
with anyone you're communicating with,
Right.
regardless of whether you're speaking
Yeah.
your native language or the
Yeah.
language you're learning.
Like you're really speaking their language.
Yes.
But not just in terms of like the vocabulary and the grammar,
Yeah.
but also in terms of
Understand.
their interests and experiences
Exactly.
and their emotions.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got it.
It's about meeting them where they're at
Yeah.
and building that bridge
Exactly.
of understanding.
And that's what makes this so valuable
Yes.
for anyone.
Right.
Whether you're learning a new language,
Mhm.
teaching a language,
For sure.
or just want to improve their communication skills.
Because ultimately language is about connection. Right.
It is.
Yeah, it's about sharing our thoughts and ideas
Yes.
and experiences with the world.
And when we can do that effectively,
Yeah,
we really open up
Yeah.
a world of possibilities.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that we have this incredible tool, language,
Mhm.
but we kind of just take it for granted.
We do. We use it every day and we don't really think about it.
Right.
The nuances, the power that it has to really shape our thoughts and influence others.
For sure. And, we've talked about some pretty powerful techniques today,
Yeah.
not just for public speaking,
Right.
but for everyday conversations,
Mhm.
language learning,
Yes.
even teaching.
What's really cool is that it all boils down to connection.
Yeah.
Connecting with your audience,
Yeah.
your message,
For sure.
and really connecting with the power of language itself.
It's more than just words.
It is.
It's like a bridge
Yes.
that connects us
It does.
to each other and to the world around us.
I love that.
All right. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Mhm.
I want to leave our listeners with a little challenge.
Okay. I like challenges.
Okay, good.
Well,
bud.
yeah.
So think about a conversation that you're going to have today.
Okay.
It could be anything.
All right.
A work, meeting a chat with a friend,
Okay.
ordering a coffee.
I'm already thinking about my morning latte.
Okay, perfect.
No.
Now, how can you use just,
Yeah.
one of the techniques that we talked about today to make that interaction a little bit more engaging?
Okay.
Maybe you try an analogy or you sprinkle in some alliteration.
Hmm.
Or maybe you focus on choosing words that evoke a specific emotion.
Yeah. Just be really intentional.
Exactly. Be intentional with your language and just see what happens.
Like a little experiment
Exactly.
with words.
I think you'll be really surprised by the results.
I think so too.
You might find that people are more engaged,
Yeah.
more receptive
Absolutely.
to your message.
And maybe even inspired.
Right, because when you unlock the power of language, you unlock a whole new world of possibilities.
You do.
It's about expressing yourself more clearly,
Yes.
connecting with others more deeply,
Absolutely.
and ultimately having a greater impact on the world around you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. So go out there and experiment with the power of language.
Yes. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
Be creative.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes.
Mistakes are part of the process.
They are the best way to learn.
Absolutely. And every time you use language intentionally,
Yeah.
you're getting better
Yeah.
at this, you're mastering the skill.
Exactly. So go forth and communicate with confidence,
Yes.
clarity, and maybe even a little flair.
A little bit of flair never hurt.
All right. Until next time, happy communicating.
Happy communicating.